There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamamia podcast.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.
Just a heads up, this interview touches briefly on the subject of suicide. If you need help, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. God, it's lovely to meet you. Are you ready to start?
I'm ready.
Yeah, I know you are. Usually when I start, I say to people, if there's anything that worries you that I bring up, there's like,
Oh, no, who gives a fuck?
and I'm like, you can swear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, guess what? You can swear. This story starts with some dry humping on a beach. And it ends with the birth of a feminist icon for a new generation. Admittedly, not many feminist icons are born from reality shows, particularly not one with a fairly sexist premise like The Bachelor, where dozens of women compete for the love of one handsome bloke. But as you're about to hear, Abbie Chatfield is not your average 26-year-old. Before all of that, Abbie was working a 9-to-5 office job up in Queensland when she decided that she needed to inject some fun into her life. So she applied to be on a reality show. She got accepted, and in 2019, just 2 years ago, she came second in Matt Agnew's season of The Bachelor. And by second, well, that means that he didn't pick her. And there really is no prize for coming second on The Bachelor if you're a contestant. It's what happened next, though, that was something to behold. From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. My name is Mia Friedman. When I mentioned in our Sydney office group chat that Abbie was coming into the studio to record this episode with me, people lost it. Everyone, forget working from home, suddenly everyone wanted to come into the office just to meet her. Not because she was Abbie from The Bachelor, but because she's Abbie freaking Chatfield. And the reaction was exactly the same among my teenage daughter's friends. By the end of this episode, if you don't know already, I think you'll understand why this former reality star and now podcaster, influencer and radio host has carved an Abbie-shaped hole in the hearts and minds of so many young Australian women. You'll also learn how she bought a house with vibrators, which is a cracker of a story. This conversation is about cancel culture, botox, and going from being a hated reality villain to a dead-set pop culture hero. Here's Abbie. Your fame was born in an instance of dry humping.
Yes, isn't that beautiful?
And I can't think of another example of that in the world. Like literally, because a lot of people go on reality TV.
Yes.
But that was the iconic moment, the dry humping.
How you feeling? Fascinating.
Really good.
Yeah?
Really good. Yeah.
Really big sex with you.
Really horny.
People were very mad about it.
They were mad about
They
it.
were so mad. They were also upset when I said to Matt, I want to have sex with you. And then there's this whole thing, I was doing all these interviews afterwards about did he say it back? I'm like, I wanted to have sex with him. Like, there's a rumour that he said it back and they cut it out. And I'm like, I don't really remember, to be honest. It was 3 months ago and it doesn't really matter because that was the truth at the moment. But yeah, people were very angry about it.
That was the first time people projected shame onto you. Because I want to, basically you've gone from reality TV villain to feminist icon for a generation, which is a big call.
Big call.
And a short journey because it's been how many years?
I think 3.
That's an extraordinary trajectory.
Yeah.
And one that people would probably like to think that you planned, but I'm guessing you didn't.
God, can we discuss this, Mia? Literally, people think that I sit in a lair and plan. Have you planned out every bit of your career? I assume not, because in this industry especially, things happen so quickly. You literally, as you would know better than anyone, you get opportunities and then the next week you're signing something or the next week you are flown somewhere or the next week. It's not like you sit there and you go, in 3 months, like you do in when I in my old job, in my corporate job in property analysis. But yeah, people think that I sat there and planned it, but I certainly did not.
When you get spat out of the reality machine, I guess going in you don't know how you're going to be portrayed. You did it for what reason?
I thought it was funny. Like, honestly, like, I thought anyone going on there purely for love, I was like, you're silly for a few reasons. And I tell everyone that, like, DMs me because I get a lot of DMs around application time.
Like, should I do it?
Yeah. And I say, like, if you're going on there just for love, like, probably not, because A, you're under contract afterwards and you can't date publicly. So, like, if you don't end up with this person, you cannot date for 6 to 9 months. And then if you do Bachelor in Paradise or whatever else, or, you know, maths, you still have that, like, 6-month period.
Because of the lag between when the show's filmed and when it's out.
Yeah. So because you can't be seen in public with anyone, even like my male bosses, I wasn't allowed to have lunch with them alone. I had to go with, like, another woman or, like, the whole team.
Because it could spoil the narrative of did she end up with,
Yeah.
Got it?
Like, my boss was beautiful when the show was airing, and every morning he'd get a coffee with me because he knew how bad I was getting trolled.
This is your boss in property.
In property.
Because you filmed. Did you know how you would be portrayed in filming? Did you get a sense, or when you're in it, you don't know until it's on TV?
I had no idea. So I applied. I thought it was funny, and then got on like six. So I applied actually. Then the next day were auditions. So I think I was like one of the last to actually put my application in. And then the next day had the audition. Had chucked a sickie. Went in. Got through, and then suddenly I was in the mansion, and I was like, "Oh, this is so bizarre." And then during filming, I was worried that my edit was going to be like the sook, because I would cry every day. Like, I would cry literally. There will be times where we had to stop filming because I was crying so hard.
What were you crying about?
Just the girls being awful to me, and Matt as well. Like, every time I saw him, he'd bring something else up that one of the girls said about me, like a vague thing, like they have a feeling that you aren't a good, that you're manipulative. Like,
Trying
just
to
vague.
make a story. So you went in, and everyone now that goes into a reality show is aware of the edit, right? So you went in with an awareness, but like that Gemini thing at the beginning.
Abbie, Matt, lovely to meet you.
What do you do?
I'm a astrophysicist.
Okay, I'm a Gemini.
Yes.
I saw that as really funny.
Yes.
You knew what you were doing, right?
It was edited. So that's edited. So, okay, so what actually happened was the thing. This is not even that, like everything, like obviously you know about Frankenbiting. So for anyone listening, like Frankenbiting is when they take single words and create a sentence. So when you go in, you think they can't make me say anything. So they can. They literally very easily can. If you listen to reality shows, you can hear people say, if it's like, I'm here in a podcast studio. Like, you can hear
It doesn't sound like a regular sentence with regular intonation.
Yes. So, you know, the rule is kind of if you see it coming out of someone's mouth in the correct scene, then it's probably real. But if they're in like an IV, like a talking head, probably fake. So the Gemini thing was I rocked up and my sister, Jolie, blame her for this, she was like, because I didn't have like a gimmick. I was like, I'm just going to talk to him, whatever. Like classic me, just being like, I'm not going to do a gimmick. Like, I don't know. Went in. And he was like, I'm an astrophysicist. And she'd said, if you get too nervous, just ask him what a star sign is because it'll be funny, like whatever. And then I'm an astrophysicist and I went like that. I was like, I know this isn't the same thing, but you got to tell me what your star sign is. Then he goes, I'm a Leo. Then I go, okay, I'm a Gemini.
When you watched it back, how did you feel?
I was really angry. Because it was that was like the first ad that came out. So it was like
So it was
8
used as
weeks.
promo.
Yeah, and it was
show.
shared by like all these international like celebrities and stuff.
Humiliation and shame, right? Before the show's even started.
Yeah.
How
and
do you react?
Yeah, and he was like, oh, this dumb blonde girl, curly hair with big tits, it's all like bubbly and
Yeah.
like gets the sex music getting out of the car and she's so stupid. And you know what? Even if I did think that an astrophysicist was an astrologist, I mean, that doesn't determine my entire intelligence, even if I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And then the issue is as well, then you get kind of like told by the networks, if you say editing, no one will believe you, no one will like you. So you get kind of like
Gaslit.
yeah, I didn't want to say it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
into thinking they're like, no one will believe you. So what you've got to do is just go along with it. It's funny. You were funny. It was funny. It was a joke. And then thank God Matt is still, and we're friends now. So thank God Matt's such a good guy. He just broken up with me 8 weeks before and he was already defending me in the press because we were always we got along really well and we still get along really well. I'm not the only one that's friends with him
You were
still.
the final two, right? Like you were
Yeah.
one of the final two, yeah.
So I came second and he was still defending me and he was like, no, Abbie's just really witty. And that's where that narrative that it was a joke came from because he was the one that was like, I know that isn't what happened.
Okay. So he was the only one that could say that.
Yes.
Because you could say it, but it looked like it was. Oh, okay.
So
right.
he was the only one that ever backed me up like in that. So straight away it was blatant editing and I was like, what is going on? And then I thought I was getting this stupid edit. I remember saying to my mum after like crying for a day about just that, it's so funny thinking about me being upset about one promo. tragic. And there was a whole season to go. But I was like, you know what? I'd rather be stupid than the bitch. And then
You were the bitch.
And then I was also
you got the bitch edit.
I was stupid, bitchy, quote unquote, like slutty villain, and then quote unquote manipulative. It was like she's manipulative and young. I remember one of the girls did an interview after the show, and I think it was a Studio 10, and the host asked, well, why don't you like this girl? Because all of you seem to not like her, but no one's told me what she's done. And I actually have DM'd the girls afterwards and said, what did I do to you? None of them have anything to say. Interesting. But one of the girls said, oh, well, you know, she's just so like young and flirty. And that was the reason why they all disliked me and thought Matt would never like me. So it was just a very chaotic time.
So you were shamed in a lot of different ways through that. But then at the end, it was because there's been lots of villain edits. There have been lots of dumb edits. But having a promiscuous edit or in quote marks a slutty edit, that was new.
Yes.
And that was a new narrative. How did you feel when that happened?
It was weird because my friends and I are all like such normal feminists, and what would happen is my friends would take my phone, my friend Seisha would take my phone because she worked in social media, and she would like filter out people, and I didn't even know what restricting was, you know. So on Instagram, for those of you who don't know, you can restrict people so that they can comment, but the public can't see the comment. And if they DM you don't see the DM. So my friend Seisha went through and she, bless her, she'd delete all the mean DMs that I was getting while the show was airing. And then she'd also read out any positive tweets. So she would sit there.
Friend you need.
Oh my God, because all my friends would watch it every week with me because I knew how bad it was. So we'd sit there and I'd take my phone, and then after watching it, we'd all go, oh, you were just horny. And then we'd look online and it was like,
all these
death
think
threats.
pieces and backlash about
like how dare she manipulative Abbie. Like I remember one time a radio host who now publicly apologised after I had a go at her in Brisbane said to Matt in an interview, and I was in the car on the way to work, I have to get death threats and people threatening me with violence, and even I would go to work and wear no makeup, hair slicked in a bun with flats just so no one would
because you still
even
had to go to your day job through all of this.
Yeah, and my boss would give me a hug and give me coffee every morning and be
Yeah.
like, how are you going? Because his wife was a psychologist. Love him. But on the radio, Matt was having an interview and someone asked him, you know, if you pick Abbie, you're going to be the most hated man in Australia. And I thought, how is picking me? Like, I don't recall doing anything awful to any of those girls. And if I had, we all know it would have been shown. If I was in the villain edit, if I did something particularly hideous, it would have been shown or spoken about. But the only issue that seemed to eventuate was that I was overly sexual and that I was quote unquote manipulative. And I think it just came down to the fact that society understands sexuality as a manipulation tactic from women, not as a genuine feeling.
Ah, so you were trying to trick him with your horniness.
Yes.
Not that you just had genuine desire to have sex.
Yes. So it was that I was young and I wanted to trick him because all I wanted to do was to win, apparently. Well, yes, I did want to because I wanted to be with him because I was in love with him. And we've spoken about it a lot, Matt and I, and he's
Did
like...
you ever have sex just to get it out of your system
No.
when you were both single?
No, we're just platonic friends. Like we literally
Really?
don't even, like we barely hug. Like it's weird to even hug. He's a really, really, really good guy. But we've spoken about all of this, obviously. So I could, like one night I was like, tell me everything. Here's my list of questions. Like, and I just asked him everything.
But it was interesting around this time because it's funny now when everyone's like, oh, but everyone's got vibrators all over social media. That wasn't happening then.
No, even 3 years ago.
Yeah. So 3 years ago, the idea of a young single woman wanting to have sex was still somehow scandalous and something that was weaponized to try and beat you with.
Absolutely. And that tied in with the stupid edit that if you are sexual, then you must also be stupid. And this is something that I wrote about a lot afterwards when I was able to write some articles for certain publications and I went on a lot of podcasts. Everyone's like, see, she planned her career. But that was just that I was so frustrated because all my friends were such strong feminists and we'd had all these talks from when we were 19, you know what I mean?
So it was almost a generational clash of all of these old school people and men were like, oh, but you were like, what? I don't understand. So it was a meeting of generations that just had totally different ideas and tropes about female sexuality.
You know what? Probably because I was the
Yeah.
youngest person on that show as well. And
Yeah.
all the older girls that were about 30 had a real issue with it. And even at Bachelor in Paradise, two of the girls, I'm not going to say who, but two of the girls said to me, the reason why I'm single is because I see people on the first date. And they told me this. And I was like,
We internalise that, right?
well, I didn't. Well, they did. So they were telling me this.
Don't
and I
give
was
it
like,
up.
but we're all here on Bachelor in Paradise single. So, like, I'm not really sure what that has to do with anything. So there was, I think, in the house and then also the edit outside the house, and that's, I guess, where I was able to be like, you kind of did this to the wrong, but I guess now, right person.
Yeah.
In terms of the edit.
So when you come out of reality TV, you were, for a moment, as reality stars often are, the most famous person in the country for a moment.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in that position. You have a day job. How do you then make money from this massive fame, but it doesn't pay you anything, does it?
No. So, and recently there was an article that came out about the maths contestants and how they aren't allowed to do any influencing for a month. And I was on my radio show and I said, yeah, duh, that's how all the contracts are. You aren't allowed to do any promotions for 3 months afterwards. And it isn't.
So you're very famous, but you can't make money out of it, your fame.
No, and it's not because Channel 10 don't want influencers involved. It actually benefits them for you to have more of a profile. But it's that advertising clashes, because at the end of the day, TV and media is just a medium for advertising.
So how do you navigate being too famous to work at your boring job? And maybe you didn't think it was boring. Maybe you really enjoyed it and you wanted to stay there. Okay.
Hated it. So, yeah, I actually changed jobs. So I came back from filming and I was so traumatized that I changed jobs to an easier job that wasn't as hard, just basically doing admin, still in property. Had a beautiful, beautiful boss. Thank God I moved over. And I just kept working. I didn't really think about making any money from it. I was just like, cool, this is done. I just want it to be over. I'm just making sure, because I was really suicidal. So I was like, I'm just going to try and survive this. That was more of, this is why I think it's so funny people are saying I planned this and I had this master. I'm like, I literally was just trying to not, like my mum would come and check on me on the night to make sure I hadn't done anything to myself. Like my mum told me this a year later. So like that's the level it was at. And then I had my job and then I got offered Bachelor in Paradise. And I was like, I need to quit my job in order to do this. So I still worked for 6 months after the show had finished airing.
Do you get paid well to do those reality shows? Because you did a series of them.
You get paid like for normal Bachelor, like $90 a day. But for me, it ended up being actually a lot of money because I had no expenses. I moved out of my rental. So I was just saving. You don't spend any money. Pause my phone bill, pause my gym. Like I came out like 10 grand or something, which, you know, was a lot of money at the time. And then I also got tax back because it's not tax, because I think it's defined as something else. I think it's like prize money or something. It's something weird. I don't understand. But so I had 3 months. I got like 6 grand in tax. It was great. But then Bachelor in Paradise, I can't say how much I got paid exactly, but I got paid a decent amount, enough that I could quit my job.
Did you have a manager at this stage? I imagine everyone came at you after Bachelor and was like, I'll represent you. Do you want to do this? And did you get a manager?
Yeah, no, I had a manager for about a couple of weeks, I think, after Bachelor in Paradise, and I found them to be more of a hindrance than a help.
Why?
Well, for example, my Vush vibrators, right? They had emailed me, I think, actually directly to do a post, and this is when Vush just started.
You became this sex positive celebrity, this face of sex positivity.
So they were like, okay, cool, we'll do a post for, and it was like 3 times my normal rate. I think my rate at the time, I shouldn't want to say, I'm not going to say. It was it was a big rate. And I was like, okay, well, that is my normal monthly income for my other job. And all I was thinking was, I'm just going to keep doing this until I can't make as much as I used to in my old job. And then I'll go back to my old job because I have a degree in property economics and I did enjoy parts of it. And they basically said that I shouldn't do it because it was too sexual. See, people... you're right, this vibrator thing really has only come about in the past 2.5 years. Even when I did it, I got so many hate DMs from uploading my first post with Vush.
Saying what?
Just saying like, oh, of course, the whore from Bachelor. And like it didn't affect me because I was like, whatever. Like I don't, using words like whore, slut, promiscuous to insult me doesn't work.
But why doesn't it work? We want to know, like there are so many women, when I ask young women, and everyone's so excited at Mamamia that you're here today and my daughter and all her friends who are in high school, it's about that you give no shits. When I say to them, but what is it about Abbie? And it's like, it's that you won't be shamed.
Yeah.
But why do those words that are being weaponized against women and are still weaponized against women and cause women to go, oh.
Yeah.
How did you go from being, you know, suicidal to being, whore, whatever?
I think that the biggest thing is because I think the thing that was making me suicidal was the like threats of violence and death threats, not the words whore. Yeah, that was kind of the thing that was upsetting me the most. Understandably, I meet people out and they would yell at me in public and stuff.
It's hard for people to understand who aren't in the public eye that That's just people who don't like you.
Yes.
Instead of saying I don't like you or I'm not going to follow you, it's you must die.
Yes, you must die. I can't stand you existing.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of why the words whore and slut, like these sexually charged words, don't shame me, I think it's because I grew up, so I was a teenager when podcasting kind of really took off. So I had access to privately explore, I guess, think pieces from women who were slightly older than me. So there's this podcast called Guys We Fucked. Have you heard of them?
Yeah. It's a comedy podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now Corinne follows me, which is so crazy. And she commented on a post the other day. And like to me, it's just wild because I was listening to them from, I think when I was like 18 or 19. Whenever they first started, I started listening to them. And their tagline is the anti-slut-shaming podcast. And it was called Guys We Fucked because they would get on the guys they'd fucked. And just talk to them. And then now it's like, they ran out. So they,
Eventually, we all do.
Yeah, exactly. So now they have amazing like sex workers on. And I think that was probably the main reason because of podcasts like that. And then I think as well, my friends and I would talk about these things. We'd have, I don't know, I think a generational thing. I think we just didn't think those words were negative. And then we kind of would sit there and go, well, what's the problem with being a slut? What, like, is the issue that you want to have sex and also that you can have a lot of sex? Like the double standards seem to be very obvious. So I think those conversations were happening maybe within the zeitgeist when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So maybe they were kind of getting imprinted onto me and I could have gone one of two ways. Maybe going to an all-girls school as well, people would think that would make you more conservative. But I think that in my instance, because it's only women there to have conversations, there weren't any boys to slut shame us or to shame us for anything. And there weren't any unsafe spaces to have like girl chat. Like we had a group of 30 at lunch talking about who we fucked on the weekend.
Yeah, right.
And I imagine at a co-ed school, I wouldn't know, but I think that actually helped, which is interesting at a Catholic or girls' school.
So you bought a house with vibrators. Mm-hmm. I've never heard such a wonderful tale of capitalism used for good.
I know.
How did that happen, Abbie?
The vibrator went really well.
So this Vush, they were making their own vibrators. First they wanted you to promote theirs.
Yeah.
It went off because you had a following of women who were like, your sex positivity made them feel seen and was something they aspired to and felt fresh and different. Whose idea was it that you would actually get a piece of the action instead of being paid to promote someone else's?
Well, so I think they saw how well the sales did and then they just asked me, I think at first it was like, do you want to be the face of Vush? And I was like, yeah, cool. Again, at the time, this is like 3 or 4 months after I quit my corporate job and I was still thinking, okay, if I can survive month to month, then I won't go back to my corporate job or I'll get another degree. I was like, should I get a degree in something? That's like where I was at. And they were like, no, actually, we'll bring out a new range. Do you want to help us design one? So they came with like a basic design. It's a G-spot vibrator. And then I was like, well, first of all, it's turned the wrong way. Like it was like turned down.
It's not there,
no,
friends.
It's not there. I was like, who created this? And then, we did things like, to be honest, I just made it selfishly.
Who negotiated your deal and the percentage that you got of every sale?
My managers. So I have managers now. So I had them from March 2020.
Because one thing as a woman that can be hard is to say your worth.
Yes. So
Did you find that hard? It's like, no, I want more money. Or you're fine with that?
Oh, no, I still struggle. That's why I'm like with my radio deal, my managers are a couple, Ben and Shane. I love them more than anything on the planet. No one ever tried to steal me. They're literally the best people on the planet. But they call me and they're like, how much money do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how much this deal is. No, we want this much. And I can't comprehend that that's how much talking shit every night is worth.
Big money on radio.
Big money on radio.
There's still big old school money on radio as opposed to podcasts and new media where it's small money compared to radio.
Yes. So I think it is. It's not hard because I have such amazing managers who
can say, no, she's worth more than that.
Yes.
We want more.
And also who really protect our mental health and my space. Like they really, I think a lot of managers, particularly for just influencers, not for media people, just for influencers, they just want to churn them out and be like, do this post, do this post, do this post. But they're really focused on how much can you handle this month? And if I say I'm too stressed for that, I'll have to say they get rid of it, even if it's a huge thing worth
that they could make good money out of as getting a cut.
Because I get 20%.
And then when did you start? Oh, then you got body shamed. I left that bit out. When people started calling you fat, which is a standard. That's like when people are grasping for things to throw at women. Calling us fat is seen as
as the worst thing to be. I mean, it exposes the inherent fat phobia of society. I did a whole rant about it recently on my podcast where it's calling me fat. Again, it's similar to the word slut. I'm like, I don't think the word fat should be an insult. And I think I've had to work really hard in trying to unlearn a lot of the fat phobia. And again, I'm not a plus size person, so I'm not part of the plus size community. But I listen to this podcast. Again, podcasts for me, honestly, I think that's a huge reason why younger people as well are having such progressive views, because they're able to learn privately and they're able to seek out what they want, and they're able to hear full-on discussions rather than just, radio segments, as wonderful as radio is. But just 3-minute chats. It's a full hour-long discussion about fat phobia. There's this podcast called Maintenance Phase. Have you heard of it? Obsessed.
Great.
Amazing. That, honestly, only in the past year is one of the reasons why I've able to really think about fat phobia in society and how I contribute to that as a straight-sized person. But I think calling me fat as an insult, again, doesn't really work. I'm like, okay, me gaining weight, okay, if I gain weight, if I lose weight, I mean, how does that affect my worth or my contribution to society? As well, I think if I do let this affect me, I am being fat phobic. So that's why I try to think. I think I'm letting down other...
So to buy into it as an insult means that you have to believe inherently that there's something wrong with it.
Yes. So I try to think of it that way as well. And that's where Maintenance Phase has really helped me, I think. And that's the whole idea again behind the slut shaming thing. It's like, well, to be hurt by this, you have to somewhere deep down think that being fat is bad and that being a slut is bad. And I focus on unlearning those things rather than being upset by them or being angry by them. I mean, even when I did a photo shoot for Bachelor, there were always comments saying she should have gotten a better photographer because she's so, and then I posted an edited photo I edited it, I photoshopped it, and then I posted the actual photo that was a new idea and was like, is this what you want? Like, do you want to see my body be contorted to a bizarre shape that isn't how I look? One of the girls in the mansion even once said to me, aren't you worried Matt isn't going to like you if you gain weight? Because you gain weight in there because what else are you doing? Like, I would just eat dumplings all day. Like, it was so good. Like, it was like a little holiday.
Seems like it would be so boring.
You know what? I'd love to, because I'd worked since I was 14. I worked 3 jobs in grade 12. I had worked my whole life so hard. I did full-time uni. Actually, I did 5 subjects at uni plus full-time work. I was like, I'm on holiday. See ya. So I was just eating dumplings, watching Netflix. Like, 'cause you have Netflix. It was sweet. But there's just this like really strong fat phobia with society. And I think that's one of the biggest things I've had to try to unlearn, particularly being in the media when your looks are criticised constantly. And TikTok's bad for it as well. TikTok's different in that, like, whenever I upload a TikTok and I've come from shooting something, again, you would know, being on TV makeup is very different to real life makeup. It's very cakey, it's very heavy, it's very smoky eye, because on TV, things don't turn up as much. But every time I post on TikTok after being on TV, people will comment being like, this makeup is not it. And it's kind of like young people, their new way of shaming is there's no category for it. I don't know how to explain that. It's like they say, like, this makeup is not it, babe. It makes you look 35. Also, 35 is not old.
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? Like, have you noticed this on TikTok? Do you have TikTok?
Yeah.
They seem to comment. Oh, yeah, I've seen your wardrobe checks. They seem to comment very, very mean things, and it isn't
So
about
do
my
you
weight.
mean there's now a pressure to be undone? Like, if you have makeup, it's like a
Maybe.
reverse thing. So if you have makeup and all of that, then somehow that's being fake?
You know what? Maybe, actually. Which, like, I don't use filters. I don't use any of that stuff. But I think
Do you
people
have
get...
Botox and that kind of stuff?
Oh, my God. Okay, this is my PSA. Don't get Botox. I got Botox and I have a wonderful doctor.
How old are you now?
26.
When did you get it?
Only end of last year.
Why did you get it?
Because I have 2 lines in between my eyebrows and all my expressions...
11s.
Yes.
So do I.
And when I
Yeah.
laugh, when I cry, when I
Yeah.
come, always do
Yeah.
this. So
It's like concentration.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, doing this. And I go,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. And showing
Yeah.
that you're interested.
Yeah. But do you think that when you have an orgasm, you should have no expression? Is that better?
No, well, this is the thing. So I was mid-hosting After Party. It was in the middle of
Which is like a TV show.
after show for Love Island.
Yep.
And because I've had my nose filled, like, if that makes sense.
I didn't know that was a thing you could do. Where did they fill it? Like on
So-
the inside?
So on the outside. So I actually have no, like, cartilage up here, bone up here.
yeah.
So it's kind of meant to be a dip. So it kind of looks like I didn't like the shape of my nose. So I
Yeah.
got it filled. Love that. We'll get that honestly to the day I die. And it's better for me than getting a full nose
Nose
job
job.
because
Because it's an injectable rather than an operation.
Yes, it takes 10 minutes.
Okay.
And I've got the most amazing doctor. But he also did Botox for me, and I hated it because I was trying to host this show and I couldn't move my eyebrows at all to show expression, and I would try to show that I was shocked at something, or like, because obviously when you're hosting a TV show, people are talking, you're meant to go like,
Yeah, you've
and you
got
do
to have
naturally.
an animated face, like active listening.
Yes, absolutely.
Like we're doing
yes.
now.
We're like, oh, I can hear you.
Very important as a podcaster.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And when you're hosting a show, and I actually had just met Conrad, my boyfriend, and the first week I was with him, because Botox, have you had Botox?
No, not yet.
Yeah, don't do it. I don't do it.
I feel like if I started, I might not be able to stop. So it's easier for me to just have a blanket rule.
Yeah.
But no judgment on those who do.
No judgment, but no, at all. Like, I mean, I got it done.
But for you, it wasn't the right thing.
Wasn't for me. And I think that if you want to get it, think about the fact I actually unconvinced my friend on the weekend to get it, because I was like,
see, I also worry from a feminist point of view, and not calling anyone that's had it unfeminist, but the idea that we're erasing women's facial expressions.
Yes.
And Abbie who's coming, Abbie who's angry, Abbie who's surprised. No, Abbie's just got to look impassive all the time. To me, that feels troubling.
That's a good point. It really made me, I would cry in the mirror after my Botox, because I said to Conrad, this isn't how I look. Like, I'd be like, I don't look like this. And it didn't look bad.
It just looked not
didn't
expressive,
like me.
like not you.
And also I noticed when I talk, I don't know if you do the same thing, but I always raise my eyebrows naturally.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always like eyes open.
Yeah.
And then when you have Botox, it locks them like this. And I looked like I was bored all the time. I'm like, see how this?
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It is. It's unnatural in that sense.
It's weird. So yeah, I've had Botox, but I don't think I'll get it. I mean, maybe I will. I don't want to say that because then someone will bring this up and be like, she said she's never going to get it
No, you
again.
never say never. I want to ask you what you feel as a feminist, and I'm not even going to ask you a stupid question about do you identify as a feminist, because obviously you do.
Yeah.
Why is there a reluctance among some women your age to describe themselves as feminist? And they're like, no, I'm a humanist and I just believe in everything. Like, why do you think that is? Because it shits me, but I want you to try to explain it to me.
Yeah, it shits me as well. I mean, I think that there is this, I think there's a few different elements. I think there is one element in certain intersections, like women of colour or disabled women or trans people. You know, I think there is an element of, well, feminism has traditionally been white feminism, and it's been very much like capitalism feminism, which I understand that. That doesn't shit me. I get why you wouldn't want to associate with something that has been traditionally racist, ableist, transphobic. You know, there are TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, who don't believe that trans women are real women, and da-da-da. So I understand that. I'd like to preface it with that. But I think what you're talking about is young women who say, I don't want to be associated with being a feminist because because they feel it threatens the men in their lives. I feel that they say, well, I know good men. It's like feminism isn't about threatening men. It's about bringing up women and other intersections of society, but it's about focusing on making sure that there is equality. I mean, women couldn't even have credit cards 60 years ago. So
or get passports or
get
bank
passports,
accounts,
or be managers of it. And that was only 60 years ago. And we have a long way to go in terms of things like domestic violence and sexual assault. And I think that there is a need for a body of people with a united cause, and that is to ensure that those who are being oppressed, including all different intersections, are being focused on. And I think that they don't see that, they see it as attacking men. And I think that I don't have an issue with that because I don't have a brother, I don't have a dad, and my family are also very so my pa died when I was 12, but the only man in my extended family is my uncle. So it's all women. And my uncle's a flamboyant dentist. He's straight, but he's just, he sings to his patients when he's doing their teeth. So there's never been in my family the traditional roles of, the man cooks and the women clean or whatever. Never. So I think I've never been part of a traditional structure that could be threatened by feminism. That could be it as well, maybe.
Yeah, because some people confuse feminism with agreeing with and supporting all women. no
yes.
matter what they do and say. Can you speak to
Oh.
that? Because I imagine people have tried to weaponize your use of the word, identification as a feminist against you.
Okay, I think the perfect example of this is Sam Frost. So I got so many anti-vaxxers coming for me saying, you call yourself a feminist, but you're tearing a woman down. I'm not tearing a woman down. I'm calling out someone for advocating against vaccines very publicly with 570,000 followers, which is very dangerous to women as a whole and people as a whole, and in particular disabled people and immunocompromised people. And as society as a whole, individual women shouldn't all be agreed with. I don't agree with people like Candace Owens. I don't agree with Gina Reinhardt. I don't agree with Pauline Hanson. Just because they're a woman doesn't mean that I have to agree with them. And I find that very interesting, and it is weaponized. So often, if I ever call out a woman, it's like, well, you're a feminist. Feminism isn't about individual women. It's about, again, a change as a whole and us coming together. And as well, feminists aren't one omnipotent being that all think the same way. People think very differently. You'd be very hard pressed to find two people on this planet that think the exact same thing. Sorry, my phone's going off. The exact same things. And I think that is especially true for feminists because there's so much time thinking about why we think the way that we do. So,
Do you need to answer that?
probably not. Let's see.
Let's see who it is.
Let's see. Who is it? Oh, God, I've got so many texts. Oh, it's my producer from the radio show. See ya. But yeah, there's I think there is this want to be able to identify feminists as one being, and that's almost like infantilizing them in like, well, what do the women think? Like, and then you choose one and you go, well, she's a woman and that's what all women think, and that just simply isn't true. So I think that happens as well with a lot of different minorities, but I think that people need to stop and realize that it is not possible for me to support all women because all women have different viewpoints on everything.
I'm Mia Friedman, and this is No Filter with Abbie Chatfield. You've gone from being a subject of the media to being the media. Now you host a nightly radio show, you've got a podcast, you're a commentator, you've got a huge platform, you're incredibly influential. I want to ask you about how it feels to carry the weight of that.
Yeah.
So you saw what happened, obviously, with your friend Brooke, and you posted something about your boyfriend, and that was seen as, suddenly that became a big story. How do you navigate that?
I think it is really hard in terms of like the radio show, right? And I think people also don't understand as well with After Party, Love Island After Party, how many times, even with interviews and with photo shoots and with how I deal with brands, how many times I have to either have not a tantrum, but be really stern on set and say, we're changing that. We're not using that. Like there have been times.
Can you give me an example?
Well, there have been times on like certain sets that in the script there's been AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English, which is appropriation to use. So things like, oh, we're going to spill the tea. And I've had to be like, no, I'm not going to say that. Let's just say, let's gossip. Or like, let's just say something like that instead. So
you have to make change from the inside when you can.
Yes.
Do you get scared of cancellation? Like when the thing happened with Brooke and you had to apologise, were you scared?
Yeah, because I think, but then, okay, so this is actually twofold. Yes, I am scared of, I won't say cancellation because again, my podcast, I'm obsessed with podcasts. Have you heard You're Wrong About?
Of course,
we love it. Have you heard the episode on cancel culture? And that made me really, I think I came out this mid last year or something. It's quite recent, but they did an episode on cancel culture and they did this whole piece about like who actually has been cancelled. And like, I can't name anyone that has been fully cancelled. So I think the idea of cancel culture actually doesn't really, I think it's like a right-wing like kind of propaganda that you're going to get cancelled. And really the only people I can really think of that have been cancelled if it's not for violence, like something like a crime, are like like who can you name anyone that's been fully lost their career?
So you apologised very fast.
Oh yes.
When people come at you, the first instinct is often to be like, oh, but I didn't mean that, or I didn't know that, or whatever.
Yeah.
You straight away just apologise.
Yes.
How's the crafting? Like, is there a team involved? Do you is it workshopped?
Well, I was on a photo shoot when she uploaded that. So I did the photo shoot. And then I just went home and called my manager and I was like, I want to upload an apology. And then he was like, okay. And then I wrote it and then I uploaded it. Because everyone was like, great PR apology. I'm like, who do you think is like, what do you mean? Like people
Because then people
think,
deconstruct the apology and it's to this or it's not enough that. But
Yeah.
you just speak from the heart in your apology? You really regretted what you did? And
well, I typed it up on my computer and then copied and pasted it onto my phone. And then, like, it wasn't, again, that was done. I was at a photo, it was like, took a while. I was at a photo shoot all day. I was at a photo shoot all day. I get home. It was like half an hour after I got home.
So because we're all going to make mistakes, right?
Yes.
You're going to make mistakes.
Yes, of course. Yes, I made mistakes before as well. I've had to apologize a few times for things. And I think that as well, Brooke and I have spoken about it privately. Like she said that we've spoken about it as well. And I understand. It was naive of me to not understand the implications of the timing, and I should have thought it through better. And yeah, things are going to, as a white, able-bodied, straight-sized woman who is financially privileged and in media, I'm going to have a lot of blind spots. So I'm going to have to apologise a lot. And I think the best thing to do is just sit there and think about, try to understand nuances by reading others' opinions, if that makes sense.
And not be defensive.
Yeah. It's hard to not be defensive, but it's just you got to I think everyone's initial reaction to ever being called out for anything, even if it's like, you didn't pay for half the dinner. Like if it's something as silly as like a friendship thing, you go, hang on. But then I think you have to learn to take a breath. And so I learned in therapy, to take a breath and just think about from their perspective. And then you tend to understand, because I think very, very few people in the world are trying to be mean or trying to, quote unquote, call you out or have a go at you without reason. Does that make sense? They're not just doing it for fun, is what I'm saying. There must be a reason and they must be hurt. So you've got to try and
Understand that perspective.
Yes.
When young women say to you, and I say young, they're just people your age, millennials, Gen Zs, teenagers, when they say to you, oh my God, Abbie, I'm obsessed with you. I love you. Why do they say they love you? What is the reason that they give to you for loving you?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the time it's like something funny, like, oh my God, it made me squirt with a vibrator. A lot of them, like if it's in like DMs, it'll be more of like a paragraph about how they've made them either be okay with their sexuality, or they've been able to unlearn their own internalized misogyny, or they have been able to, be more confident in how they look and who they are, or they've been able to speak up at work or things like that. It seems to be like an empowerment thing, which I find very.
It's an overused word, but I think that's true.
Yeah, it's weird. I get quite uncomfortable, not because it's just so heavy of a thing.
I think it's, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think it's that you make women feel that they don't have to be ashamed of things that society tells us to be ashamed of. Our size, taking up space, feeling our sexuality, being horny, all of those things. You tell women they don't have to feel ashamed.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel
that's empowering.
Well,
it is empowering.
It is. Yeah, I find,
and not just for young women. I feel empowered by the stuff that you do as well.
That's so.
I'm so glad you're in the world. I'm so glad you're in the world. Well, yes, I could have kept talking to Abbie. So I did keep talking to Abbie. We left the mics running and we actually recorded enough for a whole second episode that you can listen to right now if you subscribe to Mamamia via the link in our show notes. We talk in very specific detail about sex, sexuality, love, and how Abbie is currently in an open relationship with her partner, Conrad, who also used to be on reality TV but is now a tradie, as you heard. I had a lot of questions about what it means to be in an open relationship, and naturally, she answered all of them. How does an open relationship work?
Well,
Can you explain to me?
okay, so Conrad and I are in an open relationship.
Is it your first open relationship?
No, not really. I've like been with people. So I've like my ex and I, like, we would kiss other people, whatever. We call it kissy kissy. I have also, like, last year I was seeing someone pretty seriously, and he had like two girlfriends, like, as in, like, we weren't as girlfriends. We were both seeing him the same amount, this girl and I.
If you want to check out Abbie's podcast, there's a link in our show notes. And remember, there's also a link to listen to that extra episode of No Filter. Our producer is Gia Moylan. The executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. And I'm Mia Friedman.